I 45 male, met my girlfriend, 32 female in a bar considering our age difference. I was surprised she gave me the time of day. She made it pretty clear. She was into older guys and all that. I was skeptical and thought she must be taking advantage of me. But I had to give her a chance and get to know her. We went on several dates where she offered to pay for me. I never let her, but I was glad she paid for herself. I treated her to a few things after we dated for 5 months. That's when she told me she had a 14-year-old son. I was pretty upset with her for failing to tell me this. He lived with her, but he slept over his friends' houses a lot. That's what she told me. That just sounded weird, like she had to say that. So I'd feel less of a burden. I was already falling hard for her at this point. We've been dating for months and everything seemed even unfair. She had her own place to live and didn't ask me for money. I knew she wasn't seeing anyone else. And I felt like she was serious about our relationship and wanted to find a father figure for Steven. So we dated for 3 more months. Within that time, I met Steven and we did a few things with the 3 of us together. He was distant and didn't care very much. But I understood that. It made me wonder how many men his mother dated since his father was out of the picture. I asked her when I felt like it was an opportune moment, but she was still offended. She said she was only with 2 men after his father left. Somehow I didn't believe her, or at least thought she was downplaying how badly these relationships ended. Had she made it seem like these men were going to be his new father only for it to end suddenly, I was scared. But to be truthful, I was already committed to this relationship, and even the boy, I was getting older and I had no children of my own. I wanted to be a father figure to someone, and here was my opportunity. We dated for just another month before they were being evicted from their apartment. This was scary, but only because I realized how much I cared about them and how willing I was to help them in their time of need. They moved into my house. I cherished this house because I grew up in it and my parents left it to me. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a long driveway and about 2 acres around it. I was taking a huge chance letting this woman and her boy move in with me. But it was what I wanted. We immediately started family game nights and conversations over home-cooked meals. I was amazed at how well and natural we all came together over 2 years. I was a father figure to Steven. He actually wanted to do things with just me and him. We went fishing, to arcades, to the beach, and other more everyday places like Home Depot. I taught him as much as I could when it came to home repairs and fix-it projects. His mother and I had a great relationship consisting of communication, laughter, and lovemaking. About a year after they moved in, she started going out with friends from work while I watched Steven. I should have checked her phone every once in a while or something. I thought it would be weird to ask, even though I saw some sheepish behavior on her part. Her phone was like her lifeline. She needed it for work. And our relationship was based on trust. I didn't feel like being her parent, checking her phone or asking her questions. One night, Steven was sleeping over at a friend's house and I was late coming home from work. I told my girlfriend I wouldn't be home until 12 a.m. when my replacement came in. But our boss actually came in around 9:15 when he heard I was stuck there so late. He covered the gap for me. I was relieved and happy on the way home to surprise my girlfriend in an empty house. When I arrived, I unlocked the door and walked inside to find my girlfriend and AP frantically dressing in the living room. The couch bed was pulled out and they were halfway through watching a movie. My girlfriend just kept cursing and told AP to leave so she could talk to me, hoping that would make me let him go peacefully. I did, because all my anger was towards her. I screamed at her, asking what the hell she was thinking. I asked if they had sex. She wanted to say no, but it was very obvious. That was a lie. She knew she couldn't lie. She knew I wouldn't believe her. I just caught her naked with another man lounging like they had until midnight before I got home. My girlfriend tells me that she's been wanting to talk to me about having an open relationship where we can each bring back anyone we want to sleep with. I screamed my disbelief. This was disgusting and not what I pictured when I imagined the family we were starting. I told her to get out. But she begged me to let them stay. I told her I didn't say anything about Stephen leaving. She was very upset and told me she wouldn't allow her son to stay here without her. I asked her why she was so selfish enough to cheat on me. Selfish enough to want to have sex with more men, and selfish enough to bring her son out onto the streets with her when she knew she could trust me with him, and he'd be safe. Well, it felt like my words struck her, but she insisted she was going to pick him up the next day when he got back from his friend's house in order to get her out. I agreed. But when he came back after his mother was gone, I told him what was going on. He said he wasn't surprised, just upset because his mom did this before she came to pick him up. But he returned to me. A day later, he said his mom already moved them in with another man. So he ran away. It only took her a day to move into a stranger's home over dinner. I asked Stephen how many men his mother dated after his father was out of the picture. He was saddened and told me his mom was with a lot of guys. To keep a long story short, his mom tried to come back for him. But I went through a legal process to prove she was an unstable and a poor parental figure. Her son was old enough to choose who he wanted to live with, and he chose me. They don't have a relationship to this day, and it's not because I won't allow it. It's because Stephen hasn't felt like returning her calls or Facebook messages, as terrible as this relationship turned out to be with all the emotional pain and needless torment. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I was strong enough to take a chance and try to become the man they needed in their life. It worked for Stephen, but not his mother. She wasn't ready to meet one man and stick with him. Not even if it meant stability for her son. You've done an amazing thing for Stephen. I am sorry. Your ex didn't have the honor or respect she should have had for you and her son. She was very selfish and irresponsible. And I don't think she would have asked you about bringing other people into the bedroom. If you didn't catch her with AP, she proved herself to be a repeat offender. It's a shame she couldn't make the right decision for her son and herself. She should have remained faithful to you, the man that showed them a stable and loving home life. I'm glad you didn't consider allowing her to stay in that house. You knew you had to be there for her son, but she was on her own. Her actions proved that she didn't consider either of you at all. I think you handled this perfectly so that Stephen could return to you and you could follow the proper legal steps to help change his life. Thank you for sharing this story with us. Now, let's get into our next story for today. My wife, 34 female and I 41 male, had an okay marriage, but after 7 years, we were pretty casual with each other. She kept busy on her phone with what I thought was games or Snapchats with friends from work. Besides her phone habits, had a really bad habit of speeding on her commute to work. One night, she came home, shaken and very upset. She said she was pulled over by the sheriff for speeding, that he was really mean to her and violated her rights. One example being that he told her he'd arrest her if she didn't roll down the window all the way. That certainly is a violation of her rights. And you can't really do that. I started to get mad. So I asked for the rest of the story. She just told me she got off with a warning that surprised me a lot. I asked how fast she was going and she didn't remember. She was suddenly much calmer, smiling in the kitchen. I asked if she was okay and she said she was fine. She was just glad she got off with a warning. She was cheeky. I was totally caught off guard by her odd behavior. She was just really upset. And then within a few moments, she was smiling and pleased. I never saw her act this way, but I let it go. It wasn't until over a year later that my wife was out drinking with people from work. She went out alone several times a month. I was at my friend's house when I got a call from my wife's friend named Ray. She said she was in the car with her on the way home. But my wife was pulled over by the sheriff and Ray thought was going to get a DUI. She suggested I come get them in the car. I asked where they were and she started typing but then stopped. 15 minutes passed before she texted, "Never mind. He let her go." I couldn't believe it. She was just let off with a warning for speeding by the same man, and he let her go after he caught her drunk driving. This did not make sense. When my wife got home, she was too drunk and tired to talk to me. When she woke up the next morning, I asked her how she got out of a DUI. She was confused and said she barely remembered what happened. She was just glad she got away with it and promised me she wouldn't act so irresponsibly again. I forgot about it. Until 4 months later. My wife was at work. When Ray texted me again, she said my wife admitted something to her that night while she was drunk. The sheriff was apparently sweet on her because the first time he pulled her over, she flashed for him. I freaked out. I asked her if she was joking or if she thought my wife was joking because I couldn't believe it. She replied saying that my wife seemed completely honest. When she was drunk and pulled over last night, he asked her to get out of the car and they walked all the way behind the cruiser. None of the 3 women in my wife's car could tell what was happening and they were too nervous to get out. My wife returned about 10 minutes later and everything was fine. She made her friends swear they wouldn't tell me or anyone because she liked the sheriff too. I had to sit down. I thought I wasn't going to survive this. All I could wonder was why was I not good enough? I felt horrible, stupid and betrayed. Her friend apologized and said she didn't tell me for so long because she didn't think my wife was still seeing the sheriff until last night. Now she was sure she was seeing him because she snapped her a photo of them cuddling in his bed. My wife told her he was an amazing lover and she couldn't resist sharing her happy secret with her. Obviously, she still didn't want Ray to tell me, but she knew I deserved to know the truth. I asked her to send me the snap she sent and she just so happened to take a screenshot of it. I thanked her and hung up. I drove to my wife's workplace straight past the receptionist right up to her cubicle to yell that she cheated on me with the sheriff. She screamed, "No," and started whispering to try to get me to talk quieter. I backed up yelling, announcing I had proof that she slept with the sheriff. She just stood there turning red. She fidgeted, folded her arms, then grabbed her stuff and left the building. I felt great as I followed her in the gaze of all the people she worked with outside. We had a giant fight where she tried to say I embarrassed her at work. When I didn't have to do that. I said she deserved that and worse and showed her the photo, her face twisted until she covered it with her hands. She sobbed. I left her there and went to the police station showing them the photo. Then the sheriff came out. I showed him the photo and told him I planned to do everything within my power to pry that badge off his chest. All it took was an internal investigation with a look at the body cam footage of the stops with my wife. His hands could be seen cupping her chest before he remembered to turn off the camera. He was not expecting to get caught. He was fired and charged with misconduct. My photo proved she was sleeping with him. So in the divorce, she was ordered to pay me alimony and move out of the house. It was a huge relief the whole time during our separation and divorce. My wife swore she didn't even want to be with the sheriff. She said she did it to get out of jail time and had to keep doing it. So he wouldn't pull up old evidence and arrest her. She found out shortly after moving in with somebody that she was pregnant with his child. She had a lot of growing up to do really fast. Summarizing this story doesn't really explain how hard it was to stay strong and optimistic. I'm still skeptical of dating or trusting anyone. I am so sorry your wife did this to you. If she was to remain faithful, she never would have considered showing that man anything, no matter what her consequences would have been for speeding or DUI. It wouldn't have been as bad as her exposing herself to the sheriff. She started a forbidden lustful relationship that only made things worse. It doesn't surprise me one bit that she had trouble ending this affair because there's always a chance the sheriff would threaten her for more. Both of them are terrible and selfish without consideration for others, respect or pride for the role they were meant to take on for themselves and their loved ones. I'm relieved that you discovered the truth even though it didn't come to light for a while. You understand what a relationship takes. And so you understand that your wife failed you. Divorce and a fresh start is the right path to take. Although it will feel difficult and like it's worse than simply forgiving her, forgiveness isn't easy and usually more often than not relationship issues. Follow. This is your chance to find a woman who understands what it means to be married, respectful and faithful. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoy listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.